Have you ever sat with a group of friends having a good time but suddenly realized something was off? A forced smile, an unspoken tension, a very brief moment of silence, but enough to make you feel like the story behind it isn't that simple. You aren't trying to read into everything, but somehow you still pick up on way too much. Sounds like a gift, right? But the truth is, it's a curse. Thousands of years ago in Greek mythology, Cassandra carried a similar curse. She was given the ability to see the truth and predict the future. She knew for a fact that the city of Troy would fall. But the tragedy was nobody believed her. She screamed to warn everyone only to be seen as crazy, isolated in the very truth she held. And that is exactly the dark world of deep thinkers. You don't see the future, but you always spot problems way too early, smell danger before anyone else, and completely understand things that sometimes you wish you didn't. So, are deep thinkers destined for a tragic ending? Like Cassandra, or is there a way to carry this burden of awareness without letting it swallow you whole? I am Apex. Welcome to the journey of decoding the melancholic psychology of deep thinkers. When talking about someone who thinks too much too deeply, society tends to give them two labels. Either they're naturally too smart or they have too much free time and create their own drama. But evolutionary psychology and developmental psychology give us a completely different perspective. Becoming highly hyper-aware and constantly analyzing your surroundings doesn't necessarily come from a high IQ. In many cases, it stems from a survival mechanism. Let's go back in time for a bit. Imagine a child growing up in an emotionally unstable environment. That could be a family where parents constantly argue. It could be adults with unpredictable moods, happy and loving today, but irritable and taking their anger out on the child for no reason tomorrow. To a child's brain, that environment is the equivalent of living in a forest full of wild animal where danger can strike at any moment. To survive in that forest, the child can't just play without a care. Their brain is forced to upgrade its own warning system. It learns to observe every single tiny gesture. Are dad's footsteps heavy or light today? Is mom's voice at a high or low pitch? What do the wrinkles on their foreheads mean? Analyzing everything and seeing through every worst-case scenario becomes the only tool for the child to predict what will happen, and from there, find a way to protect themselves or avoid conflict over time. You grow up and leave that toxic environment. You think you're safe, but your brain doesn't think so. It has been reprogrammed. It still keeps the habit of constantly scanning the environment. You still automatically analyze your coworker's facial expressions, analyze a short text from your partner, and analyze every risk scenario. The deep insight you have right now is actually the leftover of a defense system. You think deeply, not because you naturally overcomplicate things, but initially you did it just to feel safe. But what is the consequence of this defense mechanism? It is that your brain slowly gets stuck in an always-on state. It doesn't know how to stop. To understand this, we need to talk about a concept in neuroscience called the default mode network, DMN. When a normal person focuses on a specific task like solving math, cooking, or driving, the brain areas related to focus light up and the DM and usually decreases its activity. When they finish the job and rest, their brain enters a relaxed state. They only think when they truly face a problem that needs solving. But for a deep thinker, this DMN network is overactive. Your brain is like a phone with too many apps running in the background. Even when you're lying in bed resting doing nothing at all, your brain is still running at max capacity. It rewinds a conversation from 5 years ago to find the mistake. It makes up fake argument scenarios that will happen tomorrow. It analyzes the meaning of existence. And here's the harsh biological truth. When the nervous system is used to living in a state of high alert, the brain can react to an imaginary scenario almost the same way it does when facing a real threat. When you lie in bed and think about a failed future or a relationship on the edge of falling apart, your brain will still send out danger signals. Your body immediately releases cortisol and adrenaline, two stress hormones. Your heart beats faster, your muscles tense up, and your stomach churns. You're exhausted, not because you're doing heavy physical labor. You're exhausted because your body constantly has to react to problems that only exist in your mind. You are drained by your own thoughts. By the way, if you like listening to psychology content like this while working, resting, or before going to sleep, you can find Apex Psychology on Spotify. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code showing on the screen to listen anytime. For now, let's keep going. When the warning system inside your head stays on forever without taking a break, it doesn't just make you physically tired, but it begins to reshape your entire way of behaving, feeling, and connecting with the world. There are three clearest psychological signs of this overthinking state in everyday life. Sign 1, internal self-censorship. There is a very popular belief in pop psychology that the more you understand yourself, the happier you will be and the easier it is to heal your trauma. But for deep thinkers, understanding yourself turns into a trap. It creates an extremely toxic psychological phenomenon, rumination. Let's look at how a normal person handles sadness. When they experience something sad, they cry. They go out for drinks with friends or they watch a movie. They allow themselves to sink into that sad feeling for a while. Then things fade away and they move on. But a deep thinker isn't like that. When you're sad, instead of simply allowing yourself to go through that feeling, the brain instantly switches to dissection mode. You start to replay everything in your head. Did I do something wrong? Is that person mad at me? Or am I thinking too much? Why does such a small thing bother me so much? Am I being too sensitive? What is the consequence? You accidentally split yourself into two separate versions. One version is the living person who is going through the pain, and the other version is the observer standing outside with folded arms, holding a notebook, constantly monitoring, grading, and analyzing every emotion of the other version. This split robs you of something very important, the ability to enjoy an experience naturally. You can't just cry. You can't just be happy. You're stuck in decoding emotions instead of actually feeling them. You use logic to deal with emotions. And that's why even though you know exactly where your wound is, it never heals. Sign 2, absorbing other people's emotions. The problem with deep thinkers is that they never stop at dissecting themselves. Their radar is always on to scan the people around them as well. This leads to an inevitable consequence, hypercognitive empathy. Empathy is a good trait, right? Thanks to deep analytical thinking, you can easily put yourself in other people's shoes. You understand the motives behind their actions. But this is actually incredibly cruel to yourself. Imagine a very familiar situation. You walk into a cafe and the server throws your drink on the table with a grumpy, annoyed attitude. What is the instinctual reaction of a normal ego? Annoyance, a sharp comeback, or simply showing visible frustration to protect one's dignity, but your brain refuses to react in that normal way. Immediately, an automatic chain of logic runs in your head. He's probably working his second shift in a row. The pay here is probably not enough to live on, or he just had a terrible fight with his family this morning. In less than 3 seconds, you have decoded and completely forgiven the rudeness of a stranger. You don't just sympathize. You willingly absorb the rock of frustration they just threw. Carefully place it in your chest and tell yourself that you need to be forgiving. You become an emotional trash can with no stopper. That is the trap of understanding too much. You are busy playing the therapist, healing the whole world, justifying all the pain, seeing through all the dark corners of others, but you forget a harsh truth. You leave no energy left to protect your own boundaries. You understand the pain of everyone in the world except yourself, and in the end, the one who collapses in that room full of understanding is you. Sign 3, being out of sync and social self-isolation. There's a common trait among many deep thinkers. It is the feeling of being out of place when having to participate in small talk, conversations about the weather, shopping, or harmless gossip. Sometimes this is easily misunderstood as arrogance, as if you're thinking, I'm too deep to care about these shallow things. However, looking through a scientific lens, the truth is not that you are superior to anyone. It's simply that your brain is used to operating at a high intensity, always looking for the meaning and the root of the problem. Small talk doesn't provide enough data for your brain to work with, making you feel empty and exhausted from having to maintain fake attention. Yet, from a biological standpoint, small talk is actually a mechanism for us to sync our rhythms with each other. Think of it like two devices scanning for signals to recognize each other before starting to transmit data. When you brush off small talk because you feel it lacks depth, you also accidentally cut off the most basic bridge of connection with the people around you. You keep your deep inner world to yourself, but the price you pay is the feeling of being lost, missing the warmth of truly belonging to a community. And when everything combines, when the brain runs in the background nonstop, paired with draining yourself to empathize with others and isolating yourself from basic social interactions, depression is no longer just a risk. It is an inevitable consequence. For deep thinkers, depression rarely comes from a sudden psychological shock. It is the result of long-term energy depletion. When you constantly force your nervous system to analyze and process a bunch of stressful scenarios in your head, the brain will consume a massive amount of energy. This overworked process slowly burns out important neurotransmitters like serotonin or dopamine, the natural chemicals that help maintain a balanced state, joy, and the motivation to live. That is why you wake up with a heavy body. You are very aware of the things you need to do, but you can't find even a little bit of motivation to get yourself up. You are not being lazy at all. In reality, your nervous system has completely shut down after being forced to work without a day off for way too long. The cruelest tragedy of this state is your absolute clarity. For many deep thinkers, the most painful thing is that they're still very clear-headed while they are sinking. With sharp analytical thinking, you can name all your emotions exactly. You understand the psychological mechanism taking place. You can dissect where the root of your trauma comes from better than anyone else. But that insight is completely useless. Your intellect is still working perfectly, but your body and willpower have been paralyzed. You are like a doctor holding an extremely detailed medical record of yourself, knowing the disease perfectly, but being completely powerless to cure yourself. It is this exact feeling of helplessness that can push the habit of overthinking deeper and deeper into a state of burnout or even long-term depression. But remember this well, you are not Cassandra. You are not cursed by the gods, and you are not destined for a sad ending. You're just stuck in a thinking habit, and just like how you can't untie a knot by pulling it tighter, you can't use thinking to cure the disease of overthinking. It's time to stop the game of standing outside watching yourself live. We have to take action to truly escape this maze. Our goal here is not to put out your depth. Deep thinking is naturally a huge strength that helps you understand the world more fully. What we need to do is stop making yourself a victim of your own mind and put thinking back in its rightful place. A tool to serve you, not something that controls you. To start breaking out of this loop, you don't need a massive revolution. You need 3 small practical actions that are repeated enough to retrain your nervous system. Action 1, write it down and lock in a next step. When all thoughts stay only in your head, it's very easy to repeat the same question dozens of times without even realizing it. So, grab a pen and paper or open the Notes app on your phone. Set a timer for 5 minutes and answer these 3 questions very briefly. What actually happened? What am I worried about? And what is the smallest thing I can do next? For example, what actually happened might just be that person hasn't replied to my text. What you are worried about could be, I'm scared they're mad or don't care about me anymore. And the next step could be as simple as, I'll wait until tomorrow before deciding if I should text back or not. When the 5 minutes are up, stop. Don't keep writing and turn this exercise into a new analysis loop. If there is something to do, pick a small step. If there is nothing to do right away, write down 1 sentence. This doesn't need to be solved today. The point isn't to find the perfect answer, but to get the thought out of your head and turn it into a specific, limited task. Action 2. Use your body to break the loop. When your mind has been running for too long, telling yourself to stop thinking has almost no effect. The more you try to stop it, the more attention you pay to it. Instead, stand up and give your body a clear task for a few minutes. You can walk around the house, wash your face with cool water, fold some clothes, wash a few dishes, stretch, do some simple exercises, or breathe in slowly and breathe out longer. While doing it, don't keep solving the problem in your head. Just focus on the action right in front of you. Feel your feet touching the floor, the temperature of the water, the movement of your hands, or the rhythm of your breath. You can remind yourself for the next 3 minutes, I don't need to figure this out. This is not running away, you're just helping your body calm down so you can see the issue more clearly afterward. Action 3, the labeling technique. When a negative thought pops up, don't rush to see it as a fact. Call it by its real name. Instead of saying, why I definitely ruined everything, change it to, I am having the thought that I ruined everything. Then ask yourself 2 questions. Do I have any clear evidence for this? Is there any other more realistic explanation? For example, that person replied shortly because they're mad at me. Clear evidence? None yet. Other explanation. They might be busy, tired, or don't know how to reply. You don't need to force yourself to think positively. You just need to stop treating the worst case scenario as the only truth. If that thought still comes back, tell yourself, this is a prediction, not a fact. And then go back to what you were doing. A simple rule to apply every day. Whenever you catch yourself overthinking, ask yourself, does this need an action, a decision, or just time? If it needs an action, pick a small step and do it right away. If it needs a decision, set a specific deadline to decide. If it just needs time, give yourself permission to put it on hold. You don't need to resolve every emotion the moment it shows up. Not every thought needs to be analyzed to the very end. Sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is write it down, take a small step, and then return to the life happening right in front of you. Deep thinking is not a mistake. Your sensitivity is not a weakness either. It helps you see the subtle things, understand people more deeply, and feel life on a level that not everyone gets to touch. But that gift only becomes a curse when you use it to analyze every look, every silence, every possibility of getting hurt until you yourself can no longer rest. It's time to step out of the laboratory of your mind. Allow yourself to be wrong, to clear your head, to enjoy a normal conversation, and to live in the present instead of constantly thinking about how to live. If you felt like you saw yourself in what you just heard, leave a comment below. Your story might be the thing that makes someone else feel they aren't completely alone. If this video helped you, hit the like and subscribe button so Apex can keep bringing these messages to more people. Thank you for joining me on this journey of decoding psychology. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.